Amen. So welcome everybody. This meditation that we are going to be learning today is aimed at awakening an experiential connection with the reality that is pointed to by many religious texts and spiritual teachings. The term spiritual awakening is something that is in our culture nowadays, in the general spiritual culture, mostly coming from traditions whose primary aim is this phenomenon of spiritual awakening. And many people are surprised to learn that this exists within the Jewish tradition, and that not just exists within it, but that the Jewish tradition, and especially the mystical stream that comes through Kabbalah and Hasidism into our day, is so rich with it that there's so much there that can help us to craft our lives in such a way that we are plugged into that reality. And what is this reality we're talking about? I realize that many people might be very familiar with this, and some people might not at all be familiar. So I'm just going to say a little bit of an overview of what is meant by this term, spiritual awakening. So one way to think of it is through the term itself. The word awakening implies like that we're asleep and then we wake up. And we know from ordinary experience that when we're asleep, we can have a dream. And when we're in the dream seems completely real to us, feels like that's what's really going on. And then when we wake up, somehow we recognize it's not hard to realize that was just a dream, and here we are in the actual waking life. How is that so? Why is that? Somehow when we're in the reality, when we're in the experience of the dream, it feels tangibly real, and for the most part that's how we experience it. Sometimes we can have lucid dreaming where we recognize that the dream is a dream while we're in the dream. But for the most part, there's that shift into waking consciousness that makes us look back at the dream. And through that comparison between the two different states, we can recognize one as somehow more real, more valid, more, where our actual lives are lived. And the other one to be something else, something generated by the mind, perhaps, or perhaps we have some other ideas of what dreams are, but there's definitely a difference there. I remember a story that I heard my teacher, Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi, tell of his granddaughter, that one time she came to him and said, Zadie, when you're asleep and you're dreaming and you wake up and the dream wasn't real? And he said, yes. And she said, well, is it possible to wake up when we're awake? Like wake up more into something that's more real than this, which is an amazing thing that a little girl, I mean, she was, I don't know exactly how old she was, but something like 5 years old or something, said that. So it's an amazing thing. So what is spiritual awakening? In a technical kind of way, it's very similar to waking up from a dream, because when we're in the dream, we have the mind is creating this reality escape that seems like there's real people and situations we're interacting with, and then it reveals itself to have been a generation of a generation or a creation of the mind in some sense. When we're in waking life, it's not that our minds are creating this virtual reality of what's around us. It's not to say that it's not real, but rather it's pointing to something else, which is that we tend to think that the that the me, the sense of self that's in this world, in these situations, is made out of the thoughts and feelings that we're experiencing. Spiritual awakening is the recognition that we are much more than that. We're much more than a bundle of thoughts and feelings inside our bodies looking out. So it's not that the world reveals itself to be not real. It's that we ourselves are not real. Like we wake up out of the dream of who we thought we were. And the thinking of who we are is not necessarily a conscious thing at all. It's something that just develops naturally as we grow up from infancy to adulthood, that we learn and grow, and we have experiences, and we develop a story about who we are. We have memories, we have opinions, we have feelings about all those things that get lodged in our nervous systems, and we have a certain experience of who we are. But behind all of that, there is still this basic, what we might call a field of awareness or a field of consciousness. And inside that field is all the stuff that we think of as me, our thoughts and our feelings, our stories, our opinions, the whole thing. But that field of consciousness is actually far more vast than any of that. And so the waking up is really, it's not a destruction necessarily of any of those things that we think of as me, but it's just waking up into something bigger, into realizing experientially that that we're not limited by that we are something, that we're more like a field of light, or a vast open space, or an ocean of silence. These are all just poetic ways of describing the actual experience of what the fruit of meditation is ultimately. So there's a wonderful Hasidic story that illustrates this, I think. It's a story of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnoi. And Yaakov Yosef was one of the primary disciples of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was the founder of the Hasidic movement in the 1700s. And there were a few top disciples that could have been the next leader. It was Rabbi Dov Ber of Mezrich became the next leader, but Yaakov Yosef was a close second. And a lot of what we know about the Baal Shem Tov was because of the writings of Yaakov Yosef. And the story goes that before Yaakov Yosef met the Baal Shem Tov, he was already a very accomplished rabbi in the scholarly sense, meaning he had a lot of learning, and he was also a very pious person and somewhat of a recluse. This is, by the way, a characteristic of many of the folks that the Baal Shem Tov pulled to himself, the rabbis that he selected to transmit his teachings to carry on what he was teaching. He selected people who were spiritually inclined, and spiritually inclined people, as maybe some of you tonight, maybe this is you too, tend to not be so extroverted, right? Tend to be more introverted, like to spend time alone, like to, in whatever that means. For him, it was studying Torah and davening. And of course, there's certain mitzvah requirements to go out and be in community. So he did it, but he didn't like it. He was a recluse, and he was somewhat of an irritable fellow too. He would get angry at things. Things would irritate him. So the story goes that he was called upon to attend a bris, which is the ritual circumcision of a boy at 8 days old. And it's a mitzvah to do that if you're invited. So he was getting ready to go, and he opens the door to go out of his house, and it's pouring rain outside. Storming, lightning, thunder, mud. So he's like, aggravated that he has to go out. But he comes back in, he puts on his different coat and boots, and he trudges out into the rain, makes his way to the home of the family where the ceremony is taking place. And when he gets there, he's the 9th guy. So they can't do the ceremony because they need a minyan of 10. So what do you do in such a circumstance? Well, normally in a very religious Jewish neighborhood, in many places in this country and in Israel, where you go outside and you try to call people in. You say, "Can you help us make the minyan so we can do the thing?" So he does that, but of course no one's coming by because it's storming rain outside. So he doesn't, he stands out there in the rain. He wants to try to find someone as soon as possible so he can get back home. And this, sooner or later, this old beggar comes along, comes down the road in tattered clothes, and Yaakov Yosef says, "Can you please come and help us make the minyan?" And the beggar says, "So be it." Okay, so he comes in, and they do the ceremony, and the host comes and offers the beggar a little l'chaim, little drink, and the beggar says, "So be it." Gives him the drink. A little while later, they serve the ritual meal. They offer him some food. He says, "So be it." So finally, Yaakov Yosef says, "What is it? What is it with this guy?" He comes to the beggar and he says, "What is it with you? All you know how to say is 'so be it'? What's going on?" And the beggar says, the psalm says, "Ashrei yoshvei veisecha od halucha selah." Now, this is the beginning of Psalm 145. And, well, actually, it's not 145. It's the, I'm sorry, the Ashrei prayer is composed mostly of Psalm 145, and the beginning lines are a collection of other verses. Anyway, it's the beginning of the Ashrei prayer. It means, "Happy are those who dwell in your house. Forever they will thank you." Yaakov Yosef says, "Yes, so what?" And then he says, "Ashrei ha'am shekochalo." Now this verse, a literal translation of this verse would be, "Happy are the people for whom this is so." So the plain meaning is, happy are people who dwell in the temple of the divine. But he translates it a little bit differently for the rabbi. Instead of saying, "Happy are those for whom this is so," he says, "Happy are those who accept that which is so." And it's like a little gong went off in the soul of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef when he heard those words. He was really taken aback. Ashrei ha'am shekochalo, happy are those who accept that which is so. And he turned around to ask the beggar, what he meant by this. And of course he had vanished. So the beggar, the magical beggar that appears and teaches the lesson. And he goes home, and on his way home, he's repeating this verse to himself over and over again. And he's starting to recognize that although he was such a great rabbi in the scholarly sense, he had studied so much, he knew so much, and yet his fundamental relationship with his actual present moment experience was one of resistance. It was one of not accepting that which is so. And this is a fundamental characteristic of how ego works, because it's how ego strengthens itself and stays alive, is through separating ourselves from what is actually arising in our experience, and therefore having a felt identity with this bundle of thoughts and feelings inside this body, looking at the rest of the world. But the more we relax that tendency of resistance, and also relax the stream of thinking, which creates narratives about the world, and instead simply connect with how the world is in this moment and how it's changing. The world's not staying the same, but keeping consciousness with the present moment. Then there can be this relaxing, this expansiveness, and this relaxing away of that sense of a separate me, and a felt connection with the oneness of reality itself, which is really what is underlying this basic Jewish teaching of Hashem Echad, that the divine is one. This is one of the central teachings of Kabbalah and Hasidism. But the point of the teaching is not something to believe in. It's not another idea about God to believe in. It's pointing to something that we can plug in directly, which is that the oneness of the divine doesn't mean that there's one God and then there's the rest of reality. It means that there's a oneness to everything, and that God is that oneness. So God doesn't exist. God is existence. In the story, Yaakov Yosef, as he's saying this to himself, and he's relaxing, first of all, recognizing that basic ego property of resistance in himself, and then letting that drop away, because that's the basic way we let it drop away, is by first of all recognizing it and accepting it. Now, we don't want to resist the resistance, but just accepting what our present moment experience is, and it kind of evaporates on its own. The story goes that he came home and that awakening started to deepen more and more, and he lay down in bed at night and he was reciting that verse over and over to himself, and he realized that must have been Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, come to teach me a lesson. This practice that we are going to do is called the 3 portals of presence practice. I call it Integral Kabbalah Meditation Level 1. It's the basic practice that we do in the Torah of Awakening community. It's an online community that people gather and we meditate every day. And this is the basic practice. It's called 3 portals because before we go into the silent portion of meditation, we enter into a more and more present state through these 3 different stages. So I want to tell you about the 3 stages, just on an intellectual level first, and then we'll jump into, well, first we'll see if there's any questions, and then we'll jump into actually practicing it. So the first level is the level of the heart. And the idea here is to deliberately take on a particular attitude, a particular kind of kavanah, which is that of giving our attention to whatever is present, to the moment as it is, but giving it as if you're giving a gift. Because when we give a gift, ideally anyway, if it's a real gift, we're giving a gift not because we're trying to get something out of it. It's not a gift in order to provoke a certain response. It's a gift out of love. One of the thought experiments I like to say is, if a small child that you love comes up to you and shows you a picture that they drew for you, say, look what I drew for you. Like, how does that, what happens in your being when that happens? A little child comes, shows you the picture. I imagine for many of us, it's a very simple experience. And there's just a giving of your attention to the child and to the picture, and there's a smile, and that's it. There's no, you're not trying to achieve a certain state when you smile at the child. You're not trying to achieve a certain result. You're just giving your attention from the heart out of love. It's completely in the moment. It's completely present. And that's what meditation is ultimately. The problem, though, with meditation or any deliberate spiritual practice is that we tend to approach the practice because we want to get something out of it, which is natural. You will get something out of it. But having that psychology in mind, having the goal in mind, in other words, of like, I'm doing this in order to get some results from it, kind of sabotages it right in the beginning. Because the whole idea is to come into that state the way you would relate to the child and their drawing. You're just there giving your awareness from the heart. And if you're trying to get something out of it, then there's something extra. There's not just a simple presence with the moment as it is. So that's why it can be very helpful for many people to begin by consciously taking on the attitude of I'm giving my attention to this moment as a gift from the heart without trying to get anything out of it. So that's level 1. That's called the portal of the heart. And we're going to use a Hebrew word to anchor us in that kavanah, in that heart intention. The word we'll use is lecha. Lecha simply means for you in Hebrew, okay? We're using that word because it comes from a verse in Chronicles, which says, Lecha Adonai Hagedula Hagavura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod. It lists the sphirot on the tree of life. If you're familiar at all with Kabbalah and the tree of life, these are these different qualities, which are actually qualities of presence, qualities of awareness. And it begins with the word Lecha Adonai Hagedula. The word Gedula means greatness, but in Kabbalah it's understood to mean the basic quality of loving kindness. And so that's why there's an association with loving kindness because of that verse. So when we do the practice, we're going to put our hands on our hearts and chant the word Lecha and try to just evoke that simple offering of awareness. You can use that thought experiment that I said about the child and the painting, or you can use something else if something better works for you. Okay, so that's portal number one. Portal number two is what I call the portal of the body. And the idea is that once we take the right attitude of being present, then we're left with the task of sustaining that over time. Because it's actually not that hard just to smile and give your attention to the moment and let go of everything else. Not that hard. You can do it in an instant. But then sustaining it for several minutes is a little bit more challenging. And so the idea here is that we bring awareness into the body, particularly the flow of the breathing. And by bringing awareness out of its normal stream of thinking, which happens spontaneously and unconsciously, almost constantly, if we're not aware of it and doing something different, then we can come more strongly into the present and let go of the mental forces that ordinarily create that waking dream world, so to speak. So that's number two, the portal of the body. Number three is a little bit more esoteric. I call it the portal of awareness itself. And to understand that, let's just do a little experiment of looking around yourself. Just look around, check out the room around you, and notice the sense of distance between what you feel is you, that is that sense of me that's here in this body, and the distance between the me and the things that are around you. Here I have these books, I have another wall over there. You just kind of feel the sense of distance and separation between me and other things that are around you in space. Next, consider the question, if you are perceiving the things around you, which you are if you're looking around. Also, this applies to sounds. You could be hearing things around you or feeling whatever you're sitting on. If you're perceiving these things, where is the perception happening? Where is the perception happening? Just reflecting on that for a moment. Where is the perception happening? If you're perceiving the wall that's beyond you and you're looking at the wall, isn't your perception of that wall over there happening inside your awareness? Isn't your sense of something that's far away from you actually completely inside your own awareness? And if that's true, then we can even take it a step farther, and isn't everything that we experience always completely inside our own awareness? And if that's the case, then our awareness is really something different from this little sense of me and my body looking out. My awareness is like a vast, infinite field that takes the shape of whatever it is I'm experiencing. And whatever it is we experience, from joy to sorrow, from the physical world to the world of emotions, to the world of thoughts, from heaven to hell, everything that happens in our experience is literally always happening inside this field of awareness. And that's our interface. We assume that there really is a world out there that we're experiencing, and I agree that there really is, but we don't really know that. What we do know is that we're experiencing something in this moment and that it's taking place in our awareness. And so in the microcosm of each of our own individual worlds, everything that we experience on all levels is completely happening inside this field of awareness. And we could go our whole lives without ever noticing the awareness itself and what it actually is, that it's this more like an open space, that it doesn't have shape, it doesn't have form, it doesn't have boundary. And that on the deepest level, that's what we are. We are this boundless, formless space, and we are not really separate from anything that we are experiencing. And so we have a direct experiential knowing of oneness in the field of awareness that we are. And what happens when we notice that? Well, you could answer yourself for what, as we're talking about it and you're noticing it, does it cause anything to shift for you? Sometimes people can have a sense of a deep inner relaxing, a kind of a letting go, when you recognize that whatever it is you're experiencing is literally made out of you, that it's made out of the field of awareness that's perceiving it. And it's a shift. It's a kind of awakening that can happen, that we can bring ourselves to actually any moment, that we become present, that we give ourselves without looking to the future, that we let our awareness sit in our bodies, and then that we recognize that everything we're experiencing is actually happening within this field of awareness, and that's what we are. We are this field beyond all of the things that we normally take to be me. Okay, so those are the three portals. When we do the body, the portal of the body, and then the portal of awareness itself, we're going to use these Hebrew words, na'aseh v'nishma. If you've learned some Torah, you might be familiar with those words. If not, that's totally okay. The words literally mean we will do and we will hear. That's what the words mean. And they come from a passage in the Torah where the Israelites are at Mount Sinai, and Moses is transmitting the Ten Commandments, the revelation. 10 Commandments are the central part of that experience, but really it's a lot more than that. And at a certain point, all the Israelites say, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. And it's a very strange phrase, because on the literal level of the Torah, of the story in the Torah, Moses is delivering these mitzvot, these commandments. And so it would make more sense for them to say, we will hear it and then we'll do it. We're going to do these commandments that you're telling us, right? But first we have to hear it and then we can do it. It can't be the other way around. We will do and we will hear. That's actually what it says in the Torah. So it's so great when you can see these little hints in the text that take us beyond the literal meaning. In the case that, in the sense of how I want to understand these words in the context of this meditation, we will do refers to being conscious of our doing, meaning bringing awareness into our body, into our movements of our body. And what we'll be doing is actually very simple. We're just going to sit and breathe. That's all that we're doing. And so na'aseh, we're bringing awareness into our doing. And then v'nishma, we will hear, means not just that we will hear, but we will recognize that we are the hearing, that we are the awareness behind the doing. And that paradoxically, when we do this practice of connecting awareness with the present moment of our physical movements, meaning feeling the flow of our breathing, feeling our body in the seat that we're sitting or standing or lying down or whatever, but bringing awareness into the senses, into the physical level, paradoxically, that physical sensory-based awareness allows us to start to notice the awareness itself that is being aware of the physical, which is itself very much not physical. It's far beyond the physical, and it's far beyond the things that we normally consider to be beyond the physical, like the mental, the stream of thinking. and the feeling world, the world of mood and emotion, that the awareness itself is far beyond all of those things. So na'aseh, becoming mindful of physical sensory awareness, v'nishma, we can recognize that we are this field of awareness. So those are the words that we'll use for the practice. So let's take just a few minutes for questions, and then we'll, or comments, and then we'll jump into doing the practice itself. What you can do is you can click on the raise your hand icon. You should find that along the bottom, or perhaps you might have to click on participants in order to see that, and then I will be able to see your hand being raised, and I can call on folks to unmute. And I see no one's hand is raised yet, so I'll just wait another 10 or 20 seconds or so and see if anybody wants to jump in here. If you can't find the hand raise and you want to say something, you're welcome to just unmute yourself and say something.
I just want to say, I hear you. That was a very significant directive to include the world in my perception and not have it separate.
Yes, yes. Yeah, thank you for that that recognition of that. It's a really essential part of the practice to be able to do that. Okay, I see a chat. Yeah, that's another way we can do it, is with chat. Let's look here. Okay. You mentioned a passage that contained the Sphirot. What was the text and the citation? So it's Chronicles, and I have to look up the chapter and number. I don't have it in the tip of my brain. If you're familiar at all with the traditional liturgy, it's always sung at the in the processional in the Torah service. Lecha Adonai Hagedula v'Hagevora. And I do have the citation. I just have to look it up. So all of the things we're doing, by the way, I can send you a PDF, and I can also send you some recordings of guiding and teaching all these things, again, that you can have, just to let folks know about that. So we'll get that exact citation soon. Okay. Someone asked, how long is it? Just to reiterate, we're going to, by the time we get to the hour, we should have experienced the practice, and then we'll go for another half hour for dialogue and questions. And it looks like Lina, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but Lina is raising her hand. So would you like to unmute and speak?
Yes, so thank you. So we have a Hebrew word for the portal of the heart, lecha, and we have Hebrew words for the portal of awareness, the na'aseh v'nishma. Are there Hebrew words for the portal of the body?
Oh yes. So what I meant to say is that na'aseh is going to be used for the portal of the body, and then v'nishma will be used for the portal of awareness itself. So each of those three words, lecha, heart, na'aseh, body awareness, nishma or v'nishma will be recognition of the field of awareness. Okay, does that answer? Okay, I don't see. I'm looking for people's faces who are talking, but I haven't found Lina. But
Well, I'm right next to you on my screen. But yes, that
oh,
does.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great, wonderful. Oh, I see you now. There you are. Okay, great. All right. Anybody else before we move on?
Oh, how can we get the PDF? And thank you.
Absolutely. So what I'll explain at the end, not the very, very end, but at the top of the hour, I'll explain about the PDF and other things that you can get that are available to you. So everybody here signed up, registered for this course.
Thank
So
you.
I have folks' info, so I'll be sure to get that to everybody. Great. All right, well, let's jump into the practice then. So I am going to put on the screen the words that we just were talking about. Here we go. Give me a little thumbs up if you can see where it says lecha and naaseh. Okay, great. Beautiful. So coming into a position that's comfortable for you, it's helpful just to be in an alert position, comfortable but also alert, meaning that if you're slouching back like that, then you probably will fall asleep, which is not a bad thing, but then you don't get the meditation. So it's helpful to you have a little bit of energy in your body sitting up so that you're not leaning back against things. Back is relatively straight and so on. And just taking a few nice deep breaths, bringing awareness into the body, letting go of the stream of thinking, letting yourself let go of any type of multitasking mentality, which we often tend to be in, and just fully coming here into the practice. We're going to bring right hand to the heart and invoking within yourself that attitude of giving awareness in a very simple and open-hearted way. Same way you might give to a child who's showing you a painting, without expectation, without even looking towards anything other than giving the awareness to that child. But instead of the child, you're giving the awareness to just the way this moment is, to what we might call the underlying presence of everything, the isness of everything, the presence of this moment. And we're going to express this offering of awareness, giving awareness from the heart with the word lecha, the offering word lecha. So nice deep breath in. Lecha. And since that was our first time doing this together, let's just do it again now that you have the sense of what it feels like to do a long tone on lecha. So nice deep breath in, right hand on your heart, lecha, lecha. And bringing your left hand to your belly. Letting your awareness shine down into your belly, soaking into all of the cells of all of your organs. Feeling awareness, light of gratitude for the workings of your body. Healing energy of awareness, shining down from your belly, down into your legs. Flowing down through your legs, down to your feet and toes. Filling the whole lower part of your body with the light of awareness. Letting your awareness rest there, dwell there in your body. And shining up from your belly back into your heart, lungs, shoulders and neck, upper back, shoulder, flowing down from your shoulders through your arms to your hands and fingers. Shining up from your body into your face, facial muscles, bringing a little smile to your lips to express this benevolence, this basic generosity, willingness of awareness to dwell in the temple of the body. Feeling awareness shining into your brain, flowing down through your spine, branching out through the inner tree of life of the nervous system, filling every corner of your body with the light of presence. And resting awareness on the flow of your breathing, just breathing naturally. Letting go of being anywhere except dwelling in this miracle of the body. And anchoring body awareness with Na'aseh on a long out breath. Deep breath in. Na'aseh. And now with your left hand on your belly, we're going to take right hand and bring it from the heart to lightly touch your forehead. So left hand on your belly, right hand on your forehead. And noticing the awareness that fills your body also shines beyond your body into the room, aware of the objects and beings, sounds and light, shapes, and recognizing that everything you perceive around you, all of the space around you, all of this is arising and perceived within one vast field of awareness. And that the inner world of thoughts and feelings and the outer world around you are all happening in this one vast, borderless, boundless field. And you are this field, beyond mind, beyond thought, beyond feeling, beyond the body, and infusing all of those things. And affirming identity with this vast open space, Venishma, on a long out breath. Deep breath in. Venishma. And kissing your fingers, relaxing your hands, and whatever position is comfortable in your lap. In this present and awake state, resting awareness in the body, open heart, giving attention to the fullness of this moment as it is, and knowing yourself as this vast open space. We're going to chant the words, the tefillah words, Atahu, Atahu. It means literally like you are it. You meaning the fullness of this moment, the fullness of reality. The divine is not something separate or remote, but is simply being itself. Atahu. We'll also chant in the feminine, because Hebrew is a gendered language. At Yahi in the feminine. So Atahu in the masculine, At Yahi in the feminine. And the idea is to simply let your mind rest in the vibration of the chant. So letting go of the stream of thinking, letting go of being somewhere else, and doing your best to stay connected with that kavanah, giving your awareness this time into the vibration of the chant, resting consciousness in your body, and knowing yourself as the expansive field of awareness itself. Atahu Atyahi. Atahu 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 Atyahi 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 Atyahi. At this point, we're going to bring the chant inside, so letting your mind rest in the vibration of the words. Atahu or Atyahi or both, like we were doing. The important part is just to be alert to thoughts as they arise. And when you notice thoughts coming, just noticing, just acknowledging. No need to push them away, but also not following them, not becoming absorbed in the thinking, but simply bringing your mind back again to chant the tefillah, Atahu, Atyahi. And we'll sit together for about 7 minutes in silence. And then we'll close again with the 3 portals. Hi anai I die die I anai I lie lie I na nai nai anai There's a chant that comes from Psalm 27, which is traditionally chanted during this time. We just began the new month of Elul, leading into the time of the High Holy Days. And this chant comes from Psalm 27. It says, Kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh in the ordinary sense means to wait or to hope. But in the deeper sense, kaveh it's saying for us to put our that attention that we normally would put into hoping for something, and instead put our awareness into the underlying presence, which is ever present, that which is that underlying divinity which is here, infused in and expressing as everything that is present right now. I'm going to put the words up here. Okay, can you see kaveh? Give me a little thumbs up if you see kaveh. Okay, good. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh el Hashem. חזק ויאמץ ליבך וקווה אל השם. קווה, קווה, קווה אל השם. קווה, קווה, קווה אל השם. Kaveh el Hashem, chazak v'ya'ametz libecha, v'kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh, kaveh, Kaveh el Hashem, Kaveh el Hashem, Chazak v'ya'ametz libecha, v'kaveh el Hashem. And closing the meditation, once again bringing your right hand to your heart, taking that attitude of offering awareness freely from the heart with Lecha on a long out breath. Deep breath in. Lecha. And bringing left hand to your belly, feeling awareness down into your body, down into your organs. And spreading out from your belly in all directions to fill the entire temple of the body. Feeling the flow of your breathing and anchoring body awareness with Na'aseh. Deep breath in. Na'aseh. And bringing right hand to your forehead, lightly touching your forehead, left hand on your belly. Feeling awareness shining like light out into space. Noticing that everything that is perceived on the inside and the outside, all is arising within one field of awareness, without boundary or border, vast silent space of presence, and you are that openness, you are that space. V'nishma, deep breath in. V'nishma. kissing your fingers, relaxing your hands. May our learning together that we did tonight bear fruit for you. May it help all of us to recognize who we are on the deepest level, this space of freedom, this space of potential within which or through which naturally flows the midot of positivity, of joy, of love, of bliss, and of healing. May we continue to grow in this realization, especially in this time of Elul, and may it bear delicious fruit for all of us. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru amen. Amen. Okay, let's see here. So I'd like to hear from you and hear how that was for you. I see Karen Johnson wrote, "Why do you kiss your fingers?" So I'm going to I'll go into questions. I'll answer that, and any other questions in a moment. Before we do that, just in case there are folks that have to leave, I want to make sure to let everyone know about how you can get more materials for this practice. So first of all, as I mentioned before, Torah of Awakening is an online meditation community. We meditate like this on Zoom, and we've been doing it actually for many years, long before COVID came on the scene. Although at this point it's been, I think, helpful to more people because of that. And anybody who is interested in trying that out and experiencing what it's like to continue doing this meditation, have the support of community, as well as teachings to help us to connect with what the practice is all about, you're welcome to try it out. So it's a membership-based community. The monthly contribution is normally $36. So when you click the link to sign up for that, you can try it out free for a month. And there's also another level to it if you want to go deeper with the practice, which a more in-depth meditation that involves the 10 Sefirot in Hebrew letters, and you'll see information about that as well. I always tell folks that if you are, especially in this time, if you're having financial difficulties and you really want to participate, it's not a barrier. So you just let me know, send me an email, and let me know what your situation is. No one is turned away. So let's open it up and see if folks have any questions. Linda?
I have well, I don't know what kind of question it would be called, but if like the divine is within us, or we are part of the divine, when we worship the divine, are we worshiping ourselves?
Good question.
I know that sounds so simple, like I'm simple-minded, but it's like, okay, I grew up in with a fairly traditional understanding of God. God is up there in heaven, and we're down here on earth. And
Right.
I've come to understand a different perspective on it. But what I don't quite get is, like, if we're worshiping God, how does that relate to us being in God or God being in us? Like, are we? That sounds very highly narcissistic to, like, worship ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question. So
it sounds wrong.
So one thing that's really key about spirituality in the context of which we're doing it right now, and also what I teach about in general and what we practice, is that the words we use, the concepts that we think about, the texts we look at, are all pointing toward a reality that we are that we have the potential to open to directly. Okay, so one way of pointing, when we talk about worshiping God, that's pointing toward a certain type of inner reality. Part of that is what I was alluding to before when we did the experiment of imagining giving our awareness to the child. Like, that's a very kind of neutral. It doesn't, when we think about God and worshiping God, sometimes that brings up a lot of different kind of images for people, has a lot of baggage to it. I like to use that child image because it's a direct way to connect with a sense of warmth and heart opening. Although another thought experiment you can use is, like, if you're in the presence of someone that you really respect, maybe someone who's famous, even something like that, and if you were in the presence of someone that maybe made you feel nervous and like you had a lot of reverence for that person, these are different states. These are ways of relating to our experience, which are similar to what we might call prayerfulness. Prayerfulness is described in the tradition as consisting of these dual qualities of yira and ahava. Yira means fear, but it's not scaredy fear. It's not like a neurotic, like terrified fear at all. It's more of a respect kind of fear, like in the sense that if you're driving a car, that's a dangerous thing. You have to be respectful of driving that. You have to be aware of what you're doing and careful and look around, not be flippant about it, or climbing a mountain or jumping out of an airplane or whatever. Like, the idea is not to be terrified of it, but to have a respect that it's bigger than you, and that you have to give your attention to it, because otherwise, you could be in trouble. Now, this is not to say that prayerfulness is going to get us in trouble. It's just to say that that sense of reverence and respect is something we can apply to our relationship with the divine, which in Kabbalah, as well as all other mystical traditions that I'm aware of, is pointing to the underlying reality of things, as opposed to a separate God that's in heaven. But the image of a separate God that's in heaven is something we can use to help to invoke that prayerful quality. So the kind of dualistic thinking of, here's me and I'm worshiping this thing that's big, I'm bowing, I'm surrendering before the divine, that's a way of relating to the divine that helps to relax ego and helps to bring forth this quality of presence from the heart, which is the aim of the practice, is to bring that quality forth. But when we do silent meditation, and another state we can go into is relaxing that sense of me as separate and the divine as something else. And then we can get that sense of oneness. Both of these realities are potentials within our experience, and they're both actually present in this practice as the heart portal and then the portal of awareness itself. And we don't have to separate them and say we're going to do this one or that one. They actually they're both and more and much more are present within our experience. So we can say yes and to all of that stuff, but not get caught in the contradictions that come up when we try to hold on to the concepts too rigidly, because the words are just pointers. They're not like factual statements that have to be logically coherent. That's not their function. Their function is to point us into a direct connection with this reality that we call the divine. The other piece of it is that when we do these things, and this is something that you can't really explain with words, but it comes through the practice, is that our sense of self, our ordinary sense of self, relaxes or dissolves. We go beyond that ordinary sense of self. So if God is me and I'm worshiping myself, I mean, that's actually the definition of idolatry. That's what the tradition in many different ways throughout history is warning us against. There's a story I just told this morning, and we did a session this morning about there was a Hasidic story of a guy who fasted for 12 years. He fasted for 6 years, and then he fasted for another 6 years because he's trying to get to that connection with the divine, and he never gets there through the fasting. And the punchline, I won't tell the whole story now, but the punchline of the story is that Elimelech of Lezhinsk, who's the Rebbe that he goes and visits, and to help him to, get that last little something that he needs, tells him that all that fasting was really just, like you said, Karen, praying to himself. It was like all reinforcing his ego. Oh, I'm such a good faster. I'm doing my practice. I'm really getting all of this sense of me doing something. And what he really needed at that point was to really go beyond that whole sense of me that feels like it's doing the practice. But the trick with any practice, it's not to say that you shouldn't fast. Fasting is as we know, it's a valid practice as well. But the whole point is having the right kavanah, the right intention, the right approach to it, so that if we were to do something like that, like fast, or just sit and meditate, or do a prayer, say the Shema, whatever it is, that we're doing it with that sense of, first of all, receiving it as a gift, knowing that it's not our own effort or our own strength by which we receive and practice whatever it is we're doing, but rather it's all a gift that's coming to us. It's all blessing, and learning how to think in the way that allows us to move beyond that ego sense and into what we call the divine presence. I hope that was helpful, but this is a question that you could probably go on with for a while, and that's good.
Thank you. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Baruch Hashem. Okay, great. All right. Anybody else? You can put up the hand raising icon, or if you can't figure out how to do that, you're welcome to just unmute yourself.
To say it's been a very long Elul day, and I thank you very much. And I am so prepared for deep sleep.
Oh, good. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Is this Gloria talking?
This is Gloria.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, I see you. Now I see you. I have to scroll through.
Gloria is about to fade out.
Okay, well, have a restful sleep, and thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Be well. Have a blessed Elul, and on from there. So may we all. Okay, so Lina, you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. Thank you again. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to, so when you do the portal of the heart, that flash of warmth, it reminds me, I do a lot of Tonglen, Pema Chodron is one of my main rebbes. And it feels very much to me like that flash of warmth, that basic goodness is what we're doing with the lecha. And I just want to make sure I'm not conflating, and that it's okay to go ahead and lean on that. I mean, it's already a groove that I have of being able to flash into that warmth from the heart and the basic goodness. That's what came up for me. It's good?
Yeah. No, I'm not so orthodox about. I mean, we all come and we should use whatever experiences we have that help us to connect with the reality of it.
Yeah. So that's very accessible. So thank you. And then my other question is, in your teachings, do you touch on Shir HaShirim? Is it a part of what you teach also?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. So part of what I do is I teach a couple times a week. So I teach on Sundays and Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. But it's all available after. There's always a nice group on there, but the vast majority of people will watch it later. And there's always a text that we're looking at. So Shir HaShirim is something that I love and I come back to again and again. Not in an organized way. I don't have a particular tract of Shir HaShirim, but it's based. The actual organization of it is based on Parsha, and I'll often bring verses from Shir HaShirim to reinforce a certain theme or a certain point. You probably know Shir HaShirim is a major text of the Kabbalists, as the really the only biblical text which has that kind of bhakti devotional God as the beloved metaphor. It's such a beautiful and strong text. So yeah, I love that text.
Good, thank you.
So yeah, if you come on if you try out practicing with this community, you'll hear from Shir HaShirim.
Yum.
Sure.
Thank you.
For sure. Oh, I see Myra is reminding me about the kissing of the fingers. So not just the kissing of the fingers, but all of the stages, all of the different pieces of the practice that we did, all come from traditional Jewish practices. So in traditional davening, there is the laying of the tefillin on the arm and on the head, and the arm tefillin is next to the heart, and the tzitzit are by your belly, so you have these ritual objects that are pointing us to these three portals in traditional practice. And it's traditional also to touch the tefillin and kiss your hands at different parts in the service in traditional davening. So so part of the goal of this practice, which is very simple, is to take some of the features of traditional davening and really focus on them in a way that's accessible for anyone, regardless of whether you know or do that traditional davening or not. So if you don't do it, you can do this practice and connect with some of the wisdom that's inherent in the tradition. If you do the traditional davening, then this should help you to connect with it in a much deeper way, because we know the one of the dangers, or one of the problems that can happen with traditional religion, any religion, is that the practices and the rituals just become kind of rote habit, and you can amass like a vast complexity of skill with the words and with the rituals and so on, and not actually be going very deep. So the purpose of this kind of practice is to really train us into going deep and accessing the deepest level of our being through these different portals, and connecting it back to the traditional practice. And the kissing of the fingers is just one part of that.
Thank you for this.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Virginia, okay.
Good night.
Lila Tov.
Lila Tov,
Tov.
be well.